start. This is, of course, a closed session, and thank you very much. Over to you, AG.
Good afternoon, Chairperson, members. Liesel Kloos, Senior Manager responsible for this audit.
Good afternoon, members, Chair. My name is Thomas Mamo. I'm the Deputy Business Unit Leader for the Western Cape Business Unit.
Good afternoon, members. My name is Tsepo Mutlomi, Auditor General Office. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and members. I'm Gilbert Lawrence, Chairperson of the Wellbeing Cluster. Thank you, which includes the Health Department.
Thank you very much. We're going to the AG. We're not doing all the pages. We're starting on 4. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson. Yes, if we can go straight to page 4 then of the briefing note, the summary of our key messages, where we've just indicated that this is the 7th year that the Department of Health has
Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to start. My name is Phil Christians. I'm chairperson of SCOPA. Next to me is Mr. Dustin Davids, our procedural officer. Members, opportunity to introduce yourselves. We do it for good purposes, and then I'm going to ask the Minister HUD to do that as well. Thank you.
Afternoon, Chair. Afternoon, Minister and Health Department, as well as committee members. I'm Jonathan Wright, member of SCOPA.
Benedicta van Minnen, member of SCOPA.
And a long morning. I'm Member Boyson, and I'm an alternate member of this committee. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Peter Johnson, permanent member of SCOPA.
Good afternoon. I'm Pat Lecker, permanent member of SCOPA.
Noma French Mbombo, SCOPA. Welcome.
Members online?
Good afternoon, Chair and colleagues. Basil Petrus.
Over to the Minister and HOD for introductions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, and to the honourable members of SCOPA. My name is Mireille Wenger, Western Cape Minister of Health and Wellness.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, committee members. Keith Clutie, the Head of Department, Health and Wellness.
Afternoon, Chair and members. Simon Kay, Chief Financial Officer.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Sadiq Karim, Chief of Operations.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Glenn Carrick, Chief Director of Finance.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Anthony Small, Director of Financial Accounting.
Good afternoon, Chair. Dirk Haynes and committee members. Dirk Haynes, Tygerberg Hospital, Finance and Corporate Services.
Good afternoon, Chair and honourable members. I'm Laura Angeletti Dutoit. I'm the Chief Director of Facilities and Infrastructure Management.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. My name is Ismail Isaacs. I'm the Chief Director for Supply Chain Management.
Thank you very much for introductions. Do you want to do it at the back as well? Audit Committee and AG?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Liesel Kloo, Senior Manager responsible for the audit of the Department of Health and Wellness.
Gilbert Lawrence, Chairperson of the Wellbeing Cluster, which includes the Health Department. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to give the Minister and HOD the opportunity to do introductory remarks, and then I will then chart the way forward. Thank you. Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. We are happy to be here this afternoon in respect of the financial information for the department for the 24-25 financial year. As you already know, we're very happy to have received our 7th consecutive clean audit. And I would like to relay my thanks to the team, because a department of the size, as you can imagine, it's quite a Herculean effort to get that right. So very well done to them. We look forward to answering your questions and to the engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to also reflect the appreciation for myself to the members of SCOPA and the oversight role that SCOPA plays. We are obviously proudly standing with you to say that we've got a 7th clean audit. But allow me just to reflect 2 things with you. The first one is our engagement with the Auditor General and Liesel and Simon, and we meet quite regularly. And one of the things that stuck with me this year in the discussion of what is in the management report from SCOPA, from the Auditor General, is the concept that Auditor General tells us when we come to you and we say that we've uncovered a challenge. The first thing we hear from you is you own the challenge. So we don't try and run away and say, no, it's not a challenge. We own it. The second thing what we hear from you is you say we will go and undertake to understand the scope of that challenge and we will address it. When we come back and we see what you've done, we see evidence that you've addressed it. As a subtotal, it is accountability, it's ownership, and also the responsibility to go back and to take it forward. So from my side, we present ourselves to SCOPA in that light. If there's anything that you will engage with us today. We will own the challenge. We will tell you that we understand where it is and what it is. We undertake to do it. Next time we see you, you will see that it's addressed. So it's in that spirit that I'm extremely proud to work with the group of people that's here in our department, especially the ones this afternoon. And just also a special mention to Dr. Lawrence and the audit committee, because we have a very mature engagement. And I actually look forward to the engagement with the audit committee. We have very candid, strategic conversations about the oversight that's been provided to us. So as an accounting officer, I proudly stand here with you to say the oversight I trust and respect, and similarly the oversight from SCOPA in engagement to all the other oversight entities, we welcome sincerely. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for the opening remarks, Minister and HOD members. We're going to do section part C, E, and F. Part C, of course, is governance, 119 to 134. Like I always ask members, please give me the page number so that the department can respond. And if you've got notes in your briefing notes from the AG, it must be linked to the page number, so that because the department don't have the briefing note that we have. I allow 2 questions per member and then I'll move on. But if there's no members, then I'll give some latitude for a member. So members, governance, please. Can I see the hands? Member Van Wyk, and then member Pat Lekker, and then member Basil Petrus. We're going to take that 3 first, ask the department to respond, and then we'll take another round. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think, first of all, I think I need to say that I'm very impressed with your annual report on the one side, and obviously your performance in what you've undertaken. Right up front, you've mentioned the challenges that this department faces, and fortunately here in Part C, we also talk about risks. But to me, there's a whole list of risks that you have mentioned here. To me, almost the biggest risk is this fiscal crisis that you're facing. And it's almost like a train that is coming. And, you can see within the figures that on goods and services, you've done your best and you've had to stretch the budget on goods and services. And in the meantime, at the expense of staffing, of critical staffing. And I think that certainly remains a concern, how we're going to deal with that going into the future in terms of having that level of funding that you need to be able to do it. Along the line here, you also talk about maintenance. I mean, we don't even go into the capital replacement and refurbishment that you've got to do. But if you look at the level of maintenance that you should be doing relative to the funding that you need, and I think that remains to me, is one of the big issues on how one navigates the next year. Not only this year, but years thereafter, and where one's going to get that level of funding. You say you step up for the challenges, but that piece of bandage is only that long. Thank you.
Very much, Member Pat Lekker.
Thank you, Chair. Let me welcome the presentation that we just received, and the comments that have been made with regards to the annual report itself. But Chair, allow me to speak on page 121 under fraud and corruption. Chair, I think for the longest period since I've been here in 2019 and following committee reports, particularly in 2019, there was an issue raised of the mattresses that were allegedly received in accordance to the report that I was following at that time. And I think what became transparent or important at that time is the fact that the alleged suspect testified that he got from what was on the system a confirmation signature and stamp from whoever that was supposed to have said, I have received this, which mentioned that the goods were received. And he then went ahead to authorize a payment, of which it then turned out that the goods were not received. The case went on regardless of the findings. But my question, therefore, Chair, says, to me, I would want to first understand how strong are the supply chain systems that are there within the department itself, and maybe how many times since that time were those systems strengthened to prevent an occurrence of a similar matter from reoccurring. And in terms of the investigation itself, can perhaps get the department to commit to investigate particularly and provide us with the update. Now, one has been found guilty, but there's evidence that the goods were allegedly received and signature thereof. And only we get to hear of a disciplinary hearing on the person who authorized the payment. Now, I would want to understand who gets to be charged, the final person who authorized the payment or a whole chain of people or persons that may have been involved in that chain of processing a payment. So can we get, I'm sure the 3 or 4 questions that I've asked on this one aspect under fraud and corruption. Then on page 122, Chair, can we get details of the case that was opened as maybe the 1st of April 2024, including the closed cases that may have been there before? What were the outcomes of those cases, and how much was involved in those cases from 1st 2024, 1st of April 2024? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Lekker. Member Peters? Microphone, Member Lekker. So put it off. Member Lekker. Member Peters?
Thank you, Chair, and colleagues. Chair, it looks as if the corruption cases and the fraud cases is more serious than we saw at the other departments. But I also want to go to page 1. Let me see here. 125, Chairperson. If there's any positive results on the compliance and internal assessments that the department oversees.
Thank you, Member. I'll hand over to the HOD Minister. You can chip in whenever you need to, but I'll hand and the HOD will then direct who's going to ask the question. So you work through the chair and I'll work through the members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Just to respond to Member van Wyk. Yes, Member van Wyk, our fiscal crisis and the financial difficulty is one of the most significant risks we face. So we have to make hard choices. And you pick up the trade-offs we have to make with the resource that we have. And it is true that goods and services squeezes out staffing. The vice versa is we then prioritize staffing, and then there's backlog on goods and services, and can we actually sustain going the way we are? Similarly, maintenance backlog, that we only have X amount of money, and as we're not actually catching up with the backlog, we fix things, but we can't truly deal with all the backlog, and then it comes back with bigger costs in future. So those are all the trade-offs you do in a limited fiscal availability to you. I do believe we do the best that we can with what we have. Hence, if you ask us how to mitigate, we're about to go into a budget process. Firstly, for the adjustment estimate. And secondly, we're going into a budget process for the 25 MTEP. From what we've seen, there is some hope on the horizon for us, that there is a stabilization, an ability to be able to stabilize our baseline so that we can move forward from there. So in the fiscal risk space, we've seen some potential release, put it that way, over the upcoming MTEP. Member Lekker, the issue of the mattresses was also raised in the annual report issued this morning. It would be preferable that the case that you are referring to, if the details is communicated to us, so that we take each case, individual case, we go back into our records, we go back into where the system is, and we can give you a detailed feedback. So it's preferable that we have that detailed. But just as a general issue, what I would like to indicate is that I was part of a National Health Council meeting last week. The resolution of that National Health Council meeting is all other provinces must come to the Western Cape so that we can look at the electronic system we have, because the electronic system has all the flags to be able to monitor and to track whether something untoward is happening in our system. So if you ask us, what is the system development? We've adopted an electronic procurement system, and we track each transaction, and we can pick up on the flags in the system of anything untoward happening in that system. I'm probably going to ask Mr. K just to highlight just briefly what that electronic system enables us to do in terms of procurement. Then the specifics of the cases, we do have the specifics because we deal with the Provincial Forensic Services. So we have the cases, the specifics of the 6 cases opened in April, the new cases for this year, the closed cases, and then the open cases at 31st March. And we have the detail of each one of the 6 cases. Mr. K, you can maybe just refer a little bit. We have regular engagements with the Provincial Forensic Services. And again, if you take the track of these cases over the years that we've had, you have to recognize that our department has by far the biggest supply chain of any government department in the Western Cape, by far. So the scales of magnitude, it doesn't compare to other departments. For the scale of what we're dealing with, the Provincial Forensic Services are saying to us, it is amazing that we've made this progress over the last 5 to 10 years, and that we are only talking about 6 open cases at the end. So you want to know, Member Lekker, the cases get sent to us. Any whistleblower can come to us. We investigate the merits of the case. If there is indication that it's not an internal matter, we ourselves refer it to Provincial Forensic Services. We make a case with SAPS if indicated. They complete their investigations, and Mr. K will give you examples of some of those. And when we need to do disciplinary processes, we speed up all our disciplinary processes in terms of giving, if it's serious, it's precautionary suspension, processing the hearings, and if found guilty, we have 0 tolerance for corruption and people get dismissed. So all of those details we have, and our colleagues in Provincial Forensic Services can attest to all of those. So when we then go to Member Petrus's question, I'm going to ask Mr. Small maybe just to elaborate a little bit about the compliance assessment tool, because he also gives us assurance at our monthly financial management, and he is a stickler for detail. So he will tell us where our risk is and how it is. So Mr. K and then Mr. Small.
Thank you, HOD. So they're actually linked because we operate under a framework of combined assurance. So the first level of assurance is managerial oversight. So you asked about who would be charged there. In order for corruption to happen, there needs to be collusion. And so we have something called the accounting officer system, which talks about delegations and says these particular people will do the ordering, these people will receive it, somebody else will check it, there will be a third or fourth leg for payment. So it's very unusual if we find collusion across the whole system. Then the second line of assurance is we have internal control units. We call them DQs. And that is a group of about 40 people that are deployed throughout the whole system at any given stage, and they've got checks and balances that they go through and they test. Linked to that is we use a lot of digitized technology in our supply chain space. So we can ascertain who has bought what item, where, the quantities that they've bought, and the price that they've paid for it, and whether or not that is or isn't on a contract. So we have the intelligence to be able to go, and that intelligence is available to us at the center as much as it's available at a district level or a facility level. So we keep things very open, very transparent. Therein lies with the EPS. The EPS, it's all electronics. There's a record of everything. It's public information. Prices are known. But importantly, in the back end, all the regulatory requirements, so the statutory documentation, the update of who the directors are, the SARS compliance, all of those things are maintained in the background so that if you are not compliant, you cannot bid. There are built-in systems, and that is something that is the custodian or the steward of that system for the whole province is the provincial treasury. And then obviously we have the fourth or the third level of assurance, which is external assurance. And we've spoken about the Auditor General is one of those. We have internal audit. There's an internal audit function that happens at the Department of Premier, who also assist. And then the PFS is a very important third line, so that if there is a whiff of potential corruption, we've got a third party that is able to investigate. And an example is we picked up in this, when we make mention of it, there was an issue at Beaufort West Hospital where there were misunderstandings, misinterpretations of the supply chain prescripts, which led to quite a lot of irregular expenditure. That was picked up two places. There was whistleblower to say things are not right, and we were able to flag that in our expenditure reviews. We were then sent the DQ team in, and they went in. They understood what exactly the problem was. They then did corrective actions and training with the officials so that we could manage that and mitigate it. At the same time, they did an assessment to see whether it was irregular expenditure or whether it was fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Now, regular expenditure, there is still value for money. Fruitless and wasteful expenditure, there is not value for money. And these were found to be irregular expenditure so that we could then go forward and get to the correct condoning authority to say, in the year, this is what has been found, this is what we've done. And in fact, the Auditor General picked up the same thing, and they audited the process of how we navigated and mitigated this. And this is an example of the control environment working the way that it should be doing. We're never going to be perfect. They're human beings in the system, but I believe that we've got a culture of compliance, so we do the right thing. And that comes in over and over and over again with our lower levels of irregular expenditures. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, Chair. So Simon alluded to most of it, but essentially we've got a group of people, because our procurement is decentralized and each hospital basically does their own procurement. We've got guys going out and regularly doing assessments, both with the intention to identify where there's shortcomings and then obviously to capacitate institutions where there's shortcomings. They are a fairly effective group, to the point where many of the forensic cases that we're talking about, where PFS refers it back to the department, they are doing preliminary investigations, and they're basically concluding the bulk of the work that PFS has to do. So they are very, very well equipped, and that's why we really strict in terms of who we appointing in that space, because they really need knowledgeable people. And they're all on the same page. We've got zero tolerance for any misgivings. Yeah, that's it.
Actually, member, is that a follow-up, member Lekker? Let's do the follow-up first before we move to a new question. Member Lekker?
No, thank you, Chair. Let me appreciate the responses, Chair. But I am really interested in understanding, because we're told there are systems in place, and there's a team that goes out and conducts investigation. And what boggles my mind is the fact that the mattresses were paid for, but the mattresses were never received. And was there at any stage any recognition of such? Because if I'm sitting here, I would think of fraud, not only fraud, but fraud and utterance. So such qualifies for an investigation to be conducted, and maybe I want to understand exactly if they were regarded as missing mattresses or mattresses that were never received. What exactly happened? I hear that there has been a request that such information must be forwarded, but it's a two-pronged information, whether proper investigation and identification of suspects or alleged suspects involved, and monies that were used to pay for stuff that was never received. Because in as much as it's a small amount, 211,000, but it's still taxpayers' money. And at least if money is being followed, would get to understand exactly systems that are in place and they are effective enough. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to give you now. So the HOD has said if we give the specific details, they'll give us a comprehensive answer. That is what I got from what you said. If you don't want to respond, if are you going to stand by that? You can only respond when you have the facts, and then you'll take it. Is that fine, Member Lekker?
No problem.
Thank you. So we're going to move on. We're going to move to new questions. Member, I know Member Mumba, your hand was up, eh? Was your hand? So it's Member Boyson and then Member Mbombo. Thank you.
New question.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I might be out of order, but as Mr. K was explaining the checks and balances, my mind went haywire in terms of how tight it sounds. And this is where I say I might be out of order. As I'm following the Madlaga Commission, I had the question on what are the possibilities that that syndicate might even be here in the Western Cape. You know, so my plain question is, we should not fear a Tembisa incident. That's my question, Chair.
Thank you, Member Mbombo. And then Member Lekker, after you got a new question, Member Lekker, Member Mbombo.
Thank you very much. Someone was asking, why would I come and do the assessment of this? Because it will also reflect on me. So, so I said, let it be, but nevertheless. But nevertheless, being an outsider within, it has also exposed me to do the comparison across all other departments, not only in South Africa, but also for the space of the global hub. So for me now, as a member of the committee, it's not only about, through you, Chair, about why didn't you do this and so forth, but how, as the committee, can also assist you as a scoper in regard that you still maintain your reputation. Because when you look in terms of the risks that you identified, you mentioned 12 risks, but when I was counting, even looking in terms of the performance, it's quite a lot. And then I was asking my question that why are you exposing yourself or putting this information out there in the public? For example, when you say there's been an increase in complaints from patients related to the long wait, also the issue of the mental health patients that are housed in the same ward as the general patient, and so forth. Also that the nurses are tired and all of those. They acquired possible hospital-acquired infections in the maternity, more specifically, for example, in George. And then also the issue of the metro And there was also a sentence that says, part of the challenges is a financially tightened but bureaucratic and time-consuming procedures for employing staff and all of those. So in the governance, Chair, because I'm talking now page 120 to 122, for example, part of the topics that you have mentioned, as I'm making an example, you are talking about risk mitigation, which is, of course, all the departments are using that risk management policy and strategy, which now you are busy revising the next one because you are done with the this one, 24-25 is done. So you are revising in regard to that. And also you are alluding to the issues related in terms of how will you be able to include some of the other stuff. So part of the question is about the DRMC. I understand you want to do the checks and balances in terms of the double assurance, where you have got the DRMC, plus also you also have got the tax score. At what extent that these there don't not only overlap, but also where you ended up creating more work for you? Because knowing the tax score, it's possible that the members of the Department of Risk Management Committee will also be part of the tax score. And secondly, is how it extend, because it says that part of you will be adding in the new upcoming the risk management policy and strategy, the ERM policy, is about what the internal audit committee has advised you. And I did ask some questions in the internal audit committee before you arrived, but one of those things that they looked at, it was on the health net. And then part of the health net, it was about the issue of the metrics and all of this scheduling of patients and so forth. So where I'm sitting, I'll say that it is important, but with the whole bulk of the work that the department has to do, and if you look at the risks that have been mentioned, I would have gone for HealthNet as looking as a risky. It's a tiny little thing. So for me, it's about how can we incorporate those 12 major risks that you identified in the next ERM policy and strategy, so that you could be able, my understanding through you, that it's sometime they will be able to present that ERM plan here in terms of those risks, because you will want to assist. And then on the page 121, you also reflect on the impact of the polio crisis. Of course, you know that polio crisis is my thing on the polio crisis, but also part of the risk was about availability of medicine. At what extent that the USA tariffs has impacted on the availability of medicines, more so in the pharmaceutical space, and also how we have been able to mitigate around that part. As you know, that there was a time where a lot of medications, specifically the contraceptives and other devices, they were sitting, not for us, for the whole of the developing countries. They were sitting somewhere in Belgium, Dubai, because the other countries couldn't be able to afford the tariffs that are imposed on them. And all of those were supposed to be now to be banned, yet the expiry date is still further. At what extent that have you been able to look in regard to that part of it? And then there is the issue.
Remember, you can just wait. Let me just give the other members, and then you have your two.
I thought you said for the governors must do the whole.
No, two per member, and then we can come back. Member Lekker. Otherwise, everybody's gonna. Member Lekker.
No, thank you, Chair. My question, Chair, basically is around I think it's page 121, if not 122. Around the upgrade and additions to facilities. I think that is part of a risk. If I remember quite well, and even now, if one goes out to Heiderveld Clinic or hospital, in the corridors you find batches of dirty linen in the corridor and not in a safe space where it's supposed to have been. And in terms of the risk, immediately I think of the risk spreading of diseases that could have been in one of the dirty linen, and now patients would be reinfected. And I want to understand, part of the upgrade and additions are such being given consideration when visitations are made to facilities such as Haterfeld. I'm citing it because it's something that I have seen not once, but many a times. It occurs every time, and maybe there is no facility to keep the dirty linen up until such time the company comes and get those. So is Haterfeld Clinic part of the upgrade so that such a risk of diseases that could spread is mitigated? Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to just add to the risks on 120. Actually, if it's going to explain, because I know it's financial constraints, but it's, it says there's service fragmentation and medicine and vaccine availability. So how do you mitigate that? Because I don't know, do people that do you look at chronic diseases first, or how do you work that out when you have that, don't have the finances to do that, and you must juggle around? How do you get around that? And we did ask the AG. They doing on-site visits, so they check for time and those type of things, the facilities and the infrastructure and all of that. So they gave us some feedback, and they said they every 2 hours go and check if there's movement in the queue and those type of things. So maybe just elaborate a bit on that, and then I'm hand over to you, HOD. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you to the members for the questions. I think to respond to Member Boyson, part of the meeting that I was in last week, that was the question posed by the National Minister to all health departments. What is the likelihood of syndicates actually operating in each supply chain unit across the country? And you can imagine that's on the back of what was publicly released by the SIU around Tembe's hospital. So the interesting thing is, and Mr. K has explained why, what the syndicate requires to do, which is to get collusion over multiple points in the system. Because the syndicate operates like this. You're basically taking the clock that receives the stuff, you add that clock, you basically get them all enrolled, and they all collude for fictitious payments to land up in people's bank account where there was no value for money, and with some kind of evidence that money kicks back to the individuals. So when I discussed with Mr. K, it would be virtually impossible for the modus operandi, of how these syndicates work, because we got graphic details of how the syndicate work. It would be virtually impossible for that syndicate to pull it off in the Western Cape with the existing controls that it's in. To be able to pull it off, you will not get very far. So therefore, what we have, and we can say that with pretty much confidence, we have small pockets where people try it, but they don't get very far. So that's why, if Member Lekker's got that details, he will give that to us, we can provide that detail. Because wherever it happens, it gets detected. But I can give you that assurance. And that's for that reason why the National Minister says, let's look at the strategy for the country to have a similar system across all the health departments in the country. Member Bombo, it is actually quite useful for you to pose a question for us, being the executive authority for a while in our department. And it's very clear from the way that you asked the question that you understand the internal mechanisms of our department. So I'm going to assure you that as a senior management team, we actually had a recent workshop with internal audit as our senior management team to answer exactly the question you're asking. So our revised ERM takes on board all of this. And what Member Mbombo very clearly articulated, and I think that is probably, I'll come back to Member Lekker's question, is because of the scope and the width of our organization. I'm going to explain to you, sir, what it means by fragmentation in medicine, and your head will probably get sore just by me explaining those two items to you. That it's important in our setting that as a senior management team, we busy ourselves only with significant strategic risks at our level. And at other levels of the organization, appropriately people address risks that's commensurate to that. So I agree with you, Member Mbombo. A risk such as health net needs to be managed at a different level of the organization compared to the risks that we're talking about. And this, the long short of it, is that we have worked internal audit and worked with them, and the internal audit actually told us our risk approach is slightly different to the other departments. And I'll just use one example. It was the PEPFAR money. So we had a 20th of January, somebody said PEPFAR is not going to come. It was tabled and discussed and mitigated at our risk meeting, departmental risk meeting, 5 days later or 6 days later. So he was just using an example, internal audit. He went to another department and they said, okay, we're going to register it in a quarter's time, we're going to discuss the matter. So this, you know, the thing that you're talking about, which is this polycrisis and the need to be agile and to be responsive in our setting is important. So therefore, we have made decisions of how our risk is actually quite agile and adaptive. We pick up big issues. So when we have a departmental risk committee, we don't replicate what happens in the departmental risk committee and at our TechSco. What we do at our TechSco, which is a senior managers meeting, I prioritize the 2 or 3 risks that is significantly challenging the sustainability of the organization. We assign a risk manager and that person gives a regular feedback at TechSco and say, we've either mitigated it or if not mitigated, we need to escalate it further. But all the other risks are there. So there's a very clear delineation in a very agile way that we don't waste time in our department. We can surface a risk as it comes, but we only deal with the risk of importance where it needs to be, and the others then gets dealt. So risk is not a administrative kickboxing exercise in our department. And actually, part of what we do as managers, it's an integral part of each manager to do the risk appropriately. Hopefully that answers your question. And that's why we are in a position to say, the moment there's evidence that the tariffs hit something like family planning methods, the US tariffs, it will register on our system. So somebody will say, we placed an order, we're running out of this. Whoa, what has happened to this agenda item, this item? It cost us 25 Rand last year per unit. All of a sudden, it's 68 Rand. We've not budgeted for it. That's why we can pick these things up, because we are attentively built into that way of thinking and much more agile and adaptive. So there will be fluidity. So you've seen the 12 risks, and the chairperson, I'll come to your question, because then I'll give you an illustration of why this agile approach is important. So when you say service fragmentation, vaccine and medicine availability, behind those 2 strategic risks lies a lot of complexity. So service fragmentation, for instance, the big item, and it's been there with us for a long time. You go into the metro and you have primary healthcare services rendered by the City of Cape Town and primary healthcare services rendered by the Western Cape government. Member Mbombo is very familiar with that scenario. We're at that point where we're saying, as a system-wide, we cannot continue that fragmentation, because the transactional cost to what we do is so significant that we need to bite the bullet, agree with the city, and make sure that those services are all consolidated under the province. So that's one of the ways that this is. And when you come to medicine and vaccine availability now, there is so many factors that influences that. But the biggest one actually is the ability to have predictable supply from medicine producers and medicine distributors. So we have this thing that all of a sudden somebody can come to it. And a classic one was the diabetes pen. So I don't know if you followed that, but internationally, because somebody has discovered a drug called Ozempic, right? So all of a sudden, if you're in the first world and you have diabetes, you take Ozempic, and you're quite okay, sorted out. So then the producers of the pen all of a sudden put their money into Ozempic, and they made money out of it. And the pen for insulin was no longer profitable. They just stopped production. We just hear that all of a sudden we order this thing, it's not available anywhere in the world, it stopped production. We have a lot of people that's diabetic on insulin, and all of a sudden we have to go to each one of those patients and say, now we have to go from the pen, you have to take a needle again, draw it up, inject yourself. That's the implication of this kind of stuff. So again, what Member Bombo is saying, these are big system issues. And therefore, and if a TB medication runs out of production, because the old production's an old tablet and all of a sudden there's not a supply, they go down. Then it is that national tenders must be of such a nature that you do not have a break in supply of an essential medicine. So we've had to go in, help the national department to make that predictable. We've had to put provincial contracts in place so that we can. So we spend all that energy and effort to make sure that our stockouts at our CMD is absolutely to a minimum. I must congratulate and really commend the people in our department for the fastidious way of making sure that we do not run out of medication. And if there is a shortage of medication, there's an immediate specialist committee coming together and say, these are the options. Please do that for the next 2 months. We will revert back and all of that. So I'm just giving you a sense of just under those two, how weighty the issues is. And that's Member Mbombo's thing. If you've got 12 of these weighty things, you can't take on a whole lot of other things. You lose focus and you need to actually manage it. To come back then to Member Lekker's team, I can give you an absolute assurance. Infection prevention and control in our system functions effectively. If you are walking through a place and you see the dirty linen that's waiting or being packed and waiting for somebody to pick up to get to the laundry, we have a very, very effective system of the laundry picking up in a bag, taking away, delivering a new clean laundry. We've had so many people come into our system to see that they need to benchmark how our laundry service works. So infection prevention control, definitely we have systems in place to make sure that it's effectively done. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, HOD. Member Mbombo, over to you. Your next set of questions.
Okay. It's page 125. It's page 125. It's about the mentioned. Actually, the HOD did mention the issue of the PHC facilities in the Cape Town Metropole. How far this process is in terms of the rationalization of those, because it was supposed to have been a risk in the sense that it does create the services to be fragmented, and you actually highlighted that in the performance. At what extent? The last time I checked, you were going to do a phase-in terms of the sub-district. So how far the process is in regard to that part? I think, Chair, did you say that? Must I wait?
Only doing governance.
Okay.
But you can go if you have more questions on governance. Is there other members that got
Okay,
questions?
the last one, the HOD spoke again on the responding on the poly crisis. Part of the response to poly crisis related to the climate change and all of those. By the way, I'm aware that so far is the only department that has done all of the preparedness and the readiness. I'm looking at Dr. Angela Dutoy, and I'm still teaching that in the Stellenbosch. But the main thing, there was One Health as part of the approach. How far? Because One Health is about the health of the plants and the animals, but I don't hear much about that part. And I was looking in terms of where is it? I don't see it here. Thank you.
Members, is there any other questions on governance? Then I'm going to give the HOD opportunity to respond. Then we're moving over to PFMA. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm really enjoying Member Mbombo's questions. Just to say that the city transfer is at the place where Minister Wenger and her counterpart in the city, which is the MACO member, are at idem. That the services from the city must be transferred, and preferably as one entity. We have even escalated it to in city finances to Treasury to work out what is that financial transaction that's required between the city and the province to do it as one go. Because what we have done is we've done Atlantis, the 3. You're aware of Atlantis. We did the 10 before. We could continue to do it, but our experience of those has been that it is transactionally heavy and financially very expensive to do it in piecemeal. So the preferable one is to do it as one go. And we are currently considering options for the budget process coming, how to actually do that. The second one of One Health, it's very close to my heart. So I co-chair a structure with the head of environmental affairs and with agriculture in this province. And about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I'm not going to let Dr. Karim loose on One Health because he will keep the committee here for a long time. We summarized a strategy. It is the 5th outcome under educated, healthy and caring society. So in the PSP, it's the 5th outcome. We've given feedback at the recent policy committee of government, and we've prioritized 3 or 4 big things. Now, the big one, you would understand, it is preparedness for outbreak response. It's between us and agriculture. The second big one after that is a surveillance system for air and water quality. And the third one is to deal with pesticide poisoning and the destruction of pesticide poisoning, because that is quite a risk. And I think there's a fourth one. And the fourth one is the antimicrobial resistance, which in itself is antibodies, and antibiotics, sorry, where there's germs that becomes resistant to those antibiotics. We are tracking that now across animals and humans. So to assure Member Mbombo, we have made quite a lot of progress. And there's such excitement of the 3 departments of people working together and working with environmental health across the municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you, members. We're going to move on to PFMA compliance 187 to 186. If I can ask my question first. Member Lekker, you first.
No, you can go on.
Okay, no, just I'm not going to speak about. I don't want to speak about the 1,391 on page 190 of the invoices paid after 30 days, because if you circle it, you say it's misfiled, misplaced. That raises concern. So maybe just I know it's a large number, 1,391 out of 200,000, a lot, but I'm just saying. And I just want to repeat what Member Bombo said. Sometimes it's small service providers that suffer. So if you can just give us some indication there. And then also the government vehicle damages and losses on the same page 190, 1.8 million in damages, losses. That's your first one, material losses. Members, I'm going to give over to you, Member Lekker.
Thank you, Chair. On page 190 on other material losses, I want to check first is that an amount which is over 2 million, and what exactly are these CMD and HIV/AIDS, and how many are we talking about? Lastly, when we say redundant stock, what exactly do we mean about it? Is it equipment that became outdated or products that may have reached the expiry date? I just want an understanding. Again, on late or non-payments, what were the reasons for the payment that was paid later than 30 days? Additionally, the 2 invoices that were disputed, what were the disputes about? I'll come back for other questions, Chair. Or should I continue?
No, Member Peters, Member Basil Peters, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is only about the expenses, Chair, on page 193. Can we have explanation on that, please?
Oh, the contract extensions of 193. That's what you're
Yes,
asking.
yes, Chair.
Thank you. Member Bombo?
General, was on supply chain, which is those pages from 192. I got reminded because I was looking in terms, where can I find it? Where do we find it? The Health Foundation, in terms of the funds that went through them and also how they've been dispersed. The reason I'm asking that is because in the social development, which is when they launched the care fund, it doesn't appear in there as they say, no, it appears in health. And then secondly, the Western Cape government has even written to the UN and all other multinationals, wanting a affirmation that they are the first government to have 30% procurement to women. And the majority of the goods and services, of course, is from within the health. Is there any way within your service providers you could be able to granulate in terms of the women-led services for those? Because they've already, as I was saying, government statement has been out and about, and some of us, specifically part of the Commonwealth parliamentarians, we're already bragging, but we need like real figures in regard to that. Thank you.
Member Peters, is that a new question?
No, Chair, it's only the expansions and the extensions, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, we got that, member. Thank you. HOD, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, members. So I'm going to ask Mr. K to just talk about Member Lekker's questions on page 190. And also your specific questions, the two questions about the invoices and the damages to vehicles. So just if you can answer those set of questions. In response to Member Peters' question, which is all on page 193, Mr. K, if you could just add a general comment of what that value of contract expansions or variations are and what the circumstances are in relation to all of them, because they are all listed there. And it goes on from 194 to 196. Yeah. And then the last one, just to answer Member Mbombo, you won't find Health Foundation here because Health Foundation used to be in the health budget because we used to do in the beginning parts of the Health Foundation. We transferred money to the Health Foundation to establish the Health Foundation. So it was almost seed money at the time, but it was specifically for a 3-year period. At the end of the 3-year period, the Health Foundation was supposed to be self-sufficient. It actually happened that the Health Foundation is now generating its own resources and it's completely independent financially from us. But what they do is they, governance-wise, we still has an oversight of what they do purely from a governance perspective. So what we do is we have an annual governance meeting with the Health Foundation, with their board, and we also still have ex officio membership on their board. And it's mainly where they are talking to us and give us feedback as an entity that's independent from us, but raise resources for activities in the health system. And therefore, they are actually, when we will have line of sight of it, Member Mbombo, is when we get to the point where we can put all money that's not voted and start talking about that as additional resources that comes into the system. We're not at that point yet, but we have a very clear understanding of what we get from, like you will potentially see that we get donations from the Children's Hospital Trust, and we have those. But we need to formalize a mechanism to give line of sight of all additional resources that's of benefit to our department, but it's not voted into our system. I hope that explains what the status is. So, Mr. K?
Thank you, HOD. So let me just, it's going to be easier for me to start around the government vehicles and damages and losses. So government vehicle damages and losses are where vehicles are damaged, but the individual that was driving it is not accountable for it. And examples, unfortunately, of this is hijackings. And hijackings are very real and very traumatic, and have, in fact, there is a strategy that is being deployed at the moment to make GG vehicles no longer GG vehicles, invisible GG vehicles. And I'm afraid that this is a concomitant and a reality of what happens in this space. Where there is a process, so if somebody is found to be liable, then they must, there's an affordability assessment done, it goes to the state attorney, there's a whole legal process that follows the recovery. So redundant stock is around inventory that generally has been held but has expired. So again, that is a concomitant of holding a large number of items of medicine stock. The reality is you're never going to get all of it done, and we have to destroy expired medication, and unfortunately there is a small cost that can be attached with that. But I think I'm thinking off the top of my head, we spend almost 2 billion rand on medicine. So 2 million on 2 billion is a pretty good stock control. So then the issue on late and non-payments of suppliers. So some of the notes are there, but I will say that 202,000 invoices and 13.8 billion rand in value. This is a significant organization running through 554 different cost centers. Each of those cost centers has their delegations, and they have the ability to place orders and make payments. Over that depth, breadth, you're not always going to get it right. We've had chance recently because in the country, there are a lot of claims of non-payment of suppliers. In fact, AFROX has taken upon themselves to sue every department of health in the country. And so we had an opportunity to then go line by line through the 8,600 odd line items of what AFROX said they owed us. And I think we got down to around about 20 odd items that we actually owed them over a period of time. And that included making sure that we wanted a delivery note to confirm that the goods had been received. We must also remember that this was a very difficult time during this financial year because of the austerity. And because we give our budgets to each individual institution, sometimes an individual institution, because of the pressure, may not necessarily have adequate budget to cover. We try and move things around, but that's always not 100% possible. And so these do come out. We check them. We make sure they are paid subsequently. The Auditor General also runs a series of tests to make sure that we have paid the amounts after the end. The other thing, I forgot about that. So at the end of this financial year, there was a change. It only happens every about 8 or 9 years. There was an upgrade to the BAS system. Version 6 or 7. I can't even remember. The last we did it was between 2016. And that actually rendered the government systems inoperable for payments. In fact, there were a number of departments who didn't make plans and didn't pay for about 3 months. And in fact, the one that gave us a big fright was our METSAS interface was meant to go through at the end of April, and it didn't. And we had to manually intervene to make sure that all of those people were paid by the 7th of May. So that was a further complication that impacted everybody. And I would take that you, as Scoper, you would have seen the implication of this in other spaces. I just want to say on the expansions and variations, the list is here. I don't want to go into each individual one. I just want to talk about a process that we have. So there are a number of reasons why these things can happen. So one can test the market and find that there's nobody suitable, nobody responds. What we've also found, interestingly enough, is when we've tested the market, we found out that people have come up with more expensive contracts than the ones that we've currently got, and people are quite content to continue on the current contract, and that's better for us because we're getting better value for money. I will say that the decision is not a decision taken by an individual person. There is a process, and Ms. Isaacs is the chairperson of the Departmental Adjudication Committee. We have commodity managers that support commodities throughout the whole province across multiple institutions, and justification has to be provided. It has to be reasonable and it has to be rational, and then we will support it. I think the one reality is in health. We can't just allow a contract to lapse. If a cleaning contract or a supply contract comes to an end and we turn around and say, well, we're not going to renew the thing, or we haven't found a new suitable, suddenly something's going to stop. Service delivery is going to stop. So we're very clear that we're not going to put our patients and our staff at risk by not agreeing to an extension. We have an early warning system, so we have a contract register, so we know what is coming up, so we can see the commodity teams know what needs to be planned, when they need to be planning procurement, and the processes that follow through. But yeah, this is a reality of the business that we find ourselves in. But rest assured, and I think we also, I mean, the other thing is we're very transparent about this. This has been disclosed in a public document. There's reporting that has to happen to the Provincial Treasury. There's reporting that has to happen to the Auditor General. The Auditor General has tests those things, has made some suggestions to us, where the Auditor General has found that we may have not reported everything. We make sure we strengthen our systems to report. On the procurement for women, Minister Member Mbombo. So the Treasury has been analysing and maintaining the statistics for all procurement in the province, not just the department. And they maintain that database. It links back into our ICNs and our contracts, and it also links back into the EPS and the SEB, the Supply Evidence Bank. And they are then able to extract that information so that Minister Bartman is then able to make the pronouncement that Minister Bartman made on behalf of the province. We don't have to track that specific information because it is maintained and it's tracked. But I just want to say on the Health Foundation, one thing on the Health Foundation, I can't remember. There was a commercial transaction around an entity that was with the Desmond and Leah Tutu Foundation, which was transferred and amalgamated into the Health Foundation. KTU. Thank you, KTU. So the KTU was so we therefore entered into a commercial contractual relationship with the Health Foundation with KTU. So there was a flow of funds between the department but it was for a specific purpose, and it actually led us to changing our governance arrangements internally. So we no longer then participated in ex officio work for the Health Foundation. We were resigned from that to make sure that we had the governance in place. Subsequent to the year end, that transaction is being unwound out of the Health Foundation, and I'm not quite sure where it's going, but it's now pulled out independently. So we will continue our relationship with them, but not through the Health Foundation. Okay, thank you.
Member Boyson, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, it's just something that has been triggered in my mind. In the 3-quote system, there's also the possibility of an irregular expenditure by items provided through a company with an expired contract. How does that happen? Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions on this section? No? HOD?
Either Mr. K or Ms. Isaacs. Ms. Isaacs, thank you.
So there's a few things that we just need we need to understand our context. So the first thing is because of the electronic purchasing system, our quotation system is not manual, which means it's advertised. Everybody out there who has registered on the system, and the system is open for registration for anybody, as long as you provide the relevant documentation. So if your documentation are in order, like your SARS and all those detailed things, you are eligible to participate in the system. Then in the province, we follow the directive of the Provincial Treasury, so that all of us are consistent in how we apply ourselves and how we implement certain processes, and the understanding is the same. We learn together and we fail together. So in that specific instance, the Provincial Treasury issue instructions to inform all provincial departments that all departments will, for any procurement above 10,000 to 1 million, that they will make use of the electronic purchasing system, which is a non-manual system. That builds the relevant control. It prevents any manual interaction, because of that system, you can download 5 quotes, 10 quotes, depending on how many people in the market responded on it. So that is, I won't say it's a foolproof thing unless we get a hacker. You never know. These things also do happen, but as best as we can, that is humanly possible. We were fortunate to have that system in place for 10,000 Rand to 1 million Rand. And that's the basis of where we find ourselves. Yeah.
Sorry, Chairperson. So, Member Boyson, again, this is an example of if somebody was trying to manipulate that, manually you can get away with it because there's no check and balances. Electronically, it's very difficult to get away with it. And now the checks and balances are closing the potential for somebody having 3-quote system for a contract that's already not there. But you wanted to add?
Yeah, I wanted just to say that there are instances where non-compliant bidders are awarded. So, for example, there's medicine that we need, and the international company says, we're very happy that you've got all your compliance, take it or leave it. And so there is a rigorous governance system that we have in place to make sure that we are able then to procure it. We acknowledge and recognize it as a regular expenditure, and then we regularize it. So it does happen where we will say non-compliant bidder, but it's very, very specific reasons in the medicine procurement. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much, members. We're going to move on to financial information, 197 to 265. Members, over to you. Member Mbombo, over to you.
2.
Yes, please.
217, the under expenditure on the health facilities management, which is understandable. It has always been the case, but also because the department becomes the client also to the Department of Infrastructure. However, the specific question I'm interested in, because recently, by the way, my constituency is George. So recently there's been again being reminded in terms of the NHI used to be funded facilities for the infrastructures for the clinics, more specifically for Pakistan. Where things are, I understand NHI project since 2012 or whatever, but now the issue is about its impact on us. And I have to go to George again and explain, because they think that it's my fault. So if I could have that, and also at what extent, because you also talk about the energy fund. The energy fund, is it for that goes to that contributed to the delay? Is it also part of the big Western Cape energy grant management program which is also part of the Energy Council, and also part of it is, I think there is a pilot somewhere in Hesekwa. So is it part of that, but exactly for health, at what extent for that part of it? And then the next page is on, probably let me skip to 18, where it talks about the loss of 989 positions, because it becomes emotional when we lose staff, more specifically when they say abnormal increases in staff resignations when they resign, when it says abnormal. Exactly what has contributed, because Western Cape generally, all departments, we never had an issue in terms of the issues of the staff turnover and all of those kind of things. But specifically, the question I wanted to ask is 219, and then I'm done, Chair. It's on 219 on the community health workers and the non-profit institutions, where things are now in regard to the community health workers. I do understand that it all impacts for the whole health system, for the whole country, and it has been there for years throughout. Whilst Western Cape ended up having its own policy around that, how to deal with it, but at the end, you'll find that the issue will always come in, more so now that some of the NPIs or NGOs who were assisting us with some of these, they have no longer have funding. And also now there's a whole outcry in regard to where they have to reduce the staffing. Because at the end, these are the anti-SARAs that are being left behind, yet they are needed in terms of the preventive and promotive, in terms of the health, where things are now on community health workers. Thank you.
Other question, Member Lecker, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is on page 203, Chair. I want to get an understanding, because there it says the investigation being conducted across the health sector in South Africa. I want to check what are the updates with regards to the investigation, and whether was the department also under investigation with regards to what is mentioned in page 203. Thank you.
That's 203 of the Auditors General's report. 203, are you sure that, eh? Members, other questions? Maybe I just want to ask a question, and that's on 254, the medical legal claims. It says the remaining 114 cases are strong. It's just an update on that. The remaining 114 cases with strong merits have been provided for under 254, the legal claims. Members, any other questions? Member Bombo, you can go.
The VPU on 290. I see that now there's a partnership with the CSIR in terms of the logistics and the tools, AI tools and so forth. But can we give a progress in terms of where things are now? Because you mentioned that you have to shift funds, and there's a whole thing about the transfer of the payments and the shortfall and all of those. Like from the anti-SARA, that is 219, Chair, 219. So for example, from the anti-SARA's perspective, when there's a high level of the crime that is being reported through the media, and then you look in terms of they have two sets of responses to the crime, which is the prevention and also the law enforcement. So health has been championing, which is the first actually department to have the violence prevention within health, as copied from the Cardiff model. But now when you see that there's been some of the delays, which is, we commend that you are partnering with the institution like the CSSR, but where things are now when it comes to this, and also it has been quite quiet media-wise amidst the issue of the crime that keeps being reported, but you don't hear much about the VPU, where things are now. Thanks.
Member Peters, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Page 261. and it's about the legal medical claims and the settlements. Can we have information on that claims and the settlements, Chairperson, please?
Thank you very much, members. HOD, over to you. Minister, you want to respond? Yes?
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to respond to partly respond to the question on the Pakotstro Clinic. So this is one of 9 projects that are part of the NHI indirect grant as a component of the health facility revitalization component, which are all delayed. So these are infrastructure development programs being run by the National Department of Health. They were supposed to be completed in 2019, and they're still nowhere near. And the problem is that these facilities are very much needed. My understanding is that they've been caught up in the IDT issues, if I can put it mildly. The IDT was the implementing agent, and as a result of the complexities that I'm sure you've all read about in the media, these programs have not been able to proceed. We have taken it up with the National Department many times, and I've written to the National Minister myself to say, what can we do about this, because these facilities are needed and they are stalled at the moment. But we're not getting much information on how to go about it. Okay, and so I believe we've recently got an update, but it is something that we are trying to navigate and to make sure that there is a tangible progress in respect of these projects. Perhaps Dr. Angeletti Dutoy can just give us the latest.
Yeah, thank you, Minister. So exactly what Minister said, with we wrote to the national minister, and after that, the national actually started to change the responsibility in the National Department of Health in relation to this specific project. So 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting with the National Department. They came here to Western Cape, to Cape Town, and they said to us that the IDT, they are busy currently in the process to cancel the implementing agent agreement with IDT. So we posed to them the option to use our new framework agreement. We have a new framework agreement that has been awarded in this in the previous financial year, but recently, and is actually open for other entities to we call a piggyback this procurement method. So we offer to the National Department to use our framework agreement. So they need to write officially to us, and then the team from supply chain will draft an agreement. Actually, we have already 2 requests to piggyback our management contractor agreement, because one was from the Department of Education in the Western Cape and one from the City of Cape Town. So we have, I think, 7 contractor, and they are all the big names in the construction industry. So I hope that the National take our offer, and what we said to them in our contract, they are allowed to appoint a contractor and then request to use a specific team of consultants. So what we want to ask them is, in the case of Pakasdop, they go back to the original consultant that they did the design, and then reappoint them via the management contract. So we hope that there is a way forward on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. So I think, Dr. Angeletti, you can just continue. Just talk about the energy fund, and then I'll come back to the staff and the community health workers.
Yes, thank you, HOD. The under expenditure took place 46 million in the PES allocation, infrastructure, and then on the energy funds. In the energy funds, what we have agreed with Treasury is under the program that you mentioned, is the G4J energy program. And what we do every year since the starting of this program, that we asked the team in the Department of the Premier and Treasury to shift, to reallocate funding in accordance to the cash flow. So for example, in this case, we ran out of time in the procurement of contractor for the installation of PV system on our hospital, and we are in the process. So we had to be adjusted. So we asked the Department of Infrastructure to use their own management contractor for the installation. So we managed to do some project like Mossel Bay, Red Cross, Hermanos, but we couldn't do the full span of intervention. So this year will be the same. We are looking at the budget allocated, and we will discuss with Treasury and the DOP to realign the budget on energy. On the PES infrastructure side and the PES Tageberg, as you know, are earmark budgeting. We have an agreement with Provincial Treasury. The money is going in the capital asset funds in relation to the capital contribution for the Tageberg PPP, because we have to provide the debt funds for the construction of the new hospital. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairperson. So I'm going to go on to the other questions. So the question on 218 around staff, the 989, I think the reasons are given there, but just to explain to Member Mbombo, the reason why we have that net loss of 989, our system is people resign and at the same month we appoint. So what happened in the middle of that financial year, all of a sudden we had unexpected big resignations that wasn't keeping trend or was out of step with the amount of people we could appoint. It was mainly due to the two-pot system. So it was between, I think, August, September, October, and people got wind of the two-pot system, and a lot of people resigned because they wanted to extract their money and get access to the money. It's an unfortunate thing because at the same time, the strict appointments rules from DPSA kicked in at the same time. So while we had this higher than expected resignation, it was also very difficult to appoint people. We just about have recovered towards January, February, March this year, of that financial year, just about got there. And it is for the first time that we started showing a little bit of a positive that we have more people appointed than people resigning. So that played a huge role in quite a lot of people exiting the system at that time. The second issue about the community health workers, there's lots has happened. The major thing that's happened at the national level is that because community health workers in the other 8 provinces are paid via PERCEL, there's been a High Court ruling that because they've been paid for more than 3 years, they are permanent employees. So there's a whole, to actually implement the court ruling, there's now all other 8 provinces are forced to now enumerate community health workers as permanent employees. The Western Cape was outside of the court ruling because we employ NPO, community health workers via NPOs. So obviously the question you're asking now is what is the status of community health workers? And we need to have a policy conversation. So it's very much as part of our budget process for next year, we need to have a policy conversation about the future of community health workers in the Western Cape. In terms of remuneration, in terms of fair employment practice, and also in terms of development and connecting into the system. So that is where we are. And obviously in the next couple of months, we must come up with a clear policy position in our department in light of the let's call it the ruling that is now forcing other departments in other provinces to permanently employ community health workers. Just to note, they are being forced to permanently employ community health workers, but there's not even a DPSA dispensation to employ people. So obviously, we don't even consider employing people because there's no formal job description that's been job evaluated with a DPSA dispensation. So obviously, our contract is with NPOs, but we need to look at fairness of the process and how we actually take that forward. In terms of Member Lekker's question on 203 around the investigation, the investigations around SIU, actually, it just happens to be that I actually received if the SIU, and we replied back to the SIU to say thank you very much, that you say to us that you found very little problems in this province and that you commend us on the good systems of controls that we have. That was a subtotal of my letter to the SIU yesterday to say thank you to them for the finding on that specific issue. In relation to the chairperson, unfortunately, chairperson, I was busy capturing another point, but Mr. K, you kept note of 2.5, 254, what the chairperson asked. So if you can just think about what that question was. And then I came back then to the VPU, and that's a question for member Bombo as well. So the specific thing about the VPU speaks about an agreement between the VPU and the CSIR around data capability. One of the reasons why the VPU was established in the health department is because of our strong data capability. This relationship with CSIR helps us to pinpoint data capability. Now, just to use an example, during COVID, we could pinpoint where the people live with geospatial mapping. And on this specific enhancement here, we could work with CSIR to also help us to pinpoint where TB cases are and all of those things are, with a view that we can actually start working the capability to pinpoint where violence happens. We can spatially pinpoint it, and we can timeline pinpoint it, geographically and timeline. Obviously, that will be a huge advantage of a data capability that will assist the law enforcement agencies with their deployment of staff. The VPU itself is not a crime prevention, it's not a crime reduction unit. The VPU is very much a violence prevention unit, which is more about the social cluster, which is working with young mothers, parenting skills, looking at the vulnerability of young children, going into schools, enhancing ECD, going into schools, looking at the ability of kids to function properly and to have conflict resolution. You might have picked up in the media in the last couple of days, there's an outcry of Milnerton where kids beat up one another. It's to address those kind of things. And in that regard, Member Mbombo, we've done quite a significant thing with the VPU, but it's in this reporting period of this financial year, not last year. And that is something called that we've done a survey called Planet Youth. And we have done a survey we've surveyed 49,000 grade 8 and 9 learners in 121 schools. And we're busy disseminating that data per geographic area for what the local response is, which is designed to say, how do you do it from actually young child? It's like a life course thing. What do you have to put in place that grade 8 and 9s in 5-6 years time do not have the tendency to beat one another up, don't use substances. So it's a preventive model around the violence prevention unit. But you will hear much more about it because we're about to have 3 sessions next week and the week after. And then we're going to have these local community responses to the data that we have. So that is the violence prevention unit. And then just lastly on member Petrus's question on 261 around medical legal settlements. So we have, and part of what the SIU actually found is because we have a very rigorous system in our department. And the rigorous system we had is we have a medical legal unit that actually straddles our own department, legal services in .P, and the state attorney's office. And it's people that's drawn from across all 3 to work collectively as a unit. One of the things that they found is when a medical legal claim is entered to us in the early stages, when we are being approached to say we got a claim, you have at that point you have a choice of 2 things. You can either say, no, we don't agree with your claim, institute legal process, and we will do this in the courts. What our team has actually found out is when you consider some of those cases on the merits of what somebody has said, we then acknowledge that that is a legitimate claim for damages done. So we prevent going through the legal process of saying we offer a settlement early. So we basically bring the parties together, say here's a settlement amount, don't go through because we save all the legal costs and then we proceed. So a lot of these payments is out of those early settlements, which actually then saves us in the long run a lot of money. Mr. K, have you educated the question of the chairperson? Thank you.
Yeah, so it's all interlinked because we were looking at contingent liabilities, we're looking at provisions and payables, and I think you've answered those questions. Just it's happened subsequent to the year end, but we had a claimant that unfortunately passed on, and we recovered 9 million rand because of the way that we've structured the trusts. There's a reversion that comes back. So we know that the money is being spent for the benefit of the individual in these instances. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, members. Any other questions? Member Mombo?
That's the last one. On the RAF 236, the road accident fund claims. So look at Simon. What do you think? I'm helping you, Simon. So the last time I checked, I might be wrong, but it was millions that RAF was actually owing the department in various ways. But now, because now the road accident fund is in the limelight with the scope at the national level, at what extent do they still owe? Do they owe us, and how much, and how are you able to recoup that money? Thank you.
HOD? Just 1 moment. I see Member Lekker, you got a question? Member Lekker? 241. Okay, go ahead.
Chair, just on goods and services, can I just get an understanding as to whether what were the legal fees spent on and how much of it was related to staff disciplinary matters, and how many cases maybe the department as a defendant on has gone to the CCMA and maybe on labor court, just as a bargaining council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I just want to ask 2 questions, but it's just for interest sake. When you talk, it's 201, program 2, when you talk about idle clinic status obtain rate. Just explain what that means. I don't know what that means. District Health Services, it's in the AG report, I think, for us 201. And then just to explain also payments made as an act of grace 277. 277 payments made as an act of grace. Maybe just to explain that. Thank you very much. Members, is there no more questions? Is everybody okay? Unless it's a follow-up. It's a follow-up. I'm going to give it another opportunity for follow-up, then we're done. Thank you.
Okay.
HOD?
Thank you, Chairperson. Just in terms of RAF for Member Mbombo, I was at the National Health Council meeting last week, as I said. One of the things is that because of the recent announcement that the RAF has now got money to dispense, there is going to be a concerted effort across all 9 provincial departments via the CFO forum to be able to recover as much of that money as possible. What our team has locally done is we have started seeing some recovery of money recently out of RAF. So there is attempts to try and get as much as we possibly can get out of RAF for the health sector. Member Lekker, Mr. K can just give you an indication of what that legal fees are about, just to give you an indication of what it is. And then, sir, on the Ideal Clinic question, so the Ideal Clinic is an assessment tool that's done by the National Department of Health. And it is almost like a set of norms and standards. And it's a self-assessment of the health system in preparation for the Office of Health Standards Compliance that has some regulated norms and standards. So it's you go into a place and you check, okay, are these things here, are this there, it's all of those there. And you can see that the plan target was 83%, our reported achievement was 80%. So it's more than 80% of our facilities is actually Ideal Clinic. And it was quite interesting to compare this to a conversation with the National Council of what's happening across other provinces. And the practice in our setting, and this is what Auditor General also pointed out to us, it's very much not, we're not doing this for window dressing on show. It is when things are not there, it's not there, and we don't drive it from one facility to the other to impress the person assessing. It's the real situation. And many of the requirements are in smaller facilities, which becomes almost impractical in that facility to be able to do all of the things that's required of that. But we're pretty clear that that's our achievement. And then Mr. Kay will also to speak about Act of Grace in relation also to the legal fees.
Then Chair, just to expand on the ideal clinic assessments. So what you see, there's not an actual decline in the number, but what happened in the year under review is that 11 facilities that were due to be audited asked to be excluded, but their number is still counted in. And there are many reasons for that. So, for example, if a facility is currently undergoing a renovation or is in construction, it's not ideal to have an ideal audit because that specific facility is disrupted for that year. So that would explain then that variance, because 11 of the facilities were not able to have the audit like they should have. Yeah.
Thank you, HOD. So legal fees, there's primarily three groups of legal fees. Medico-legal, which we've spoken about. Yes, there are labour court related actions and CCMA related actions. And the third one is supply chain management. Supply chain management is also fairly litigious and has become even more litigious actually in probably the last 3 or 4 years. You asked about some details about the CCMA and the Labour Court. We were asked exactly the same question this morning in the Portfolio Committee, and we committed that we would, if we would provide detail. And I'd like to make sure that we are consistent in the detail that we provide to both across the Portfolio Committee as well as SCOPA. So if the chair's okay with that, we would provide the detail. Then Acts of Grace. So Acts of Grace, so the PFMA allows the accounting officer under certain circumstances to make a consideration of up to 100,000 Rand at a time and to then give some money. Again, we can give the detail about exactly what those transactions were and the reasons and rationales behind them, but it's 169,000. Anything over 100,000 Rand, you need to come to the legislature, and the legislature can then approve that in terms of the PFMA. But yeah, it's compassionate related matters. And yes, it is funerals are quite a component to this.
Also relocating a staff member's body, if somebody passed away in the families in another province.
So it's primarily humanitarian based.
Member Lekio, follow up? Put on your microphone.
Really getting tired. No, Chair. Actually, I was going to latch on the details of those matters, but seeing that such information has already been requested in the morning, I'll wait for that. But then let me quickly go to 245 and under debts written off. I think this is on supplier debt. Can we get details as to why the debts has been written off, and who are the suppliers whose debts has been written off? Thank you.
Thank you very much, HOD.
It's okay. I know there's a list, and it is a smallish amount, but Mr. K.
Again, we can provide the detail of exactly what that was, but. So sometimes what happens is that there is an over delivery or an overpayment, and then either the supplier goes bankrupt or they go missing, and then ultimately we write off whatever is due. They are few and far between, but there is an allowable within the PFMA. So we can provide the detail.
Members, is that it? We call it a day? Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask the Minister and HOD to do the closing remarks. And then I'm going to ask Member Mbombo for asking the most intelligent questions to do the thank yous to the department and the Minister. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and to the honourable members for having a deep look at our financial information and our audits for the year, and for posing your questions and conducting your oversight. Let me express my appreciation to SCOPA. I'd also like to thank our assurance partners for the work they do all year round to make sure that we remain on the right governance path and can maintain our governance track records. And then again, thank you to the department for the work done all year round and for answering questions today.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just to say to the committee, thank you very much for the oversight. And as accounting officer in the team, we really take oversight seriously. And as I said, the principle that the Auditor General commended us on, when there's a mistake, we own it. When we say we're going to do something about it, please check that we do it. And that is where credibility comes from and trust comes from. So thank you for that spirit. Really want to say thank you to all the colleagues in the department. And it's many people outside the room that's not here that tirelessly works at this. You have to just go and see when somebody that's one line here and do all the work, how much pride they have in doing the work right. And therefore, you know, in terms of fraud, I can so much stand with confidence and say that the people that are working in this department, by and large, are driven by the right values, the right ethical compass to be able to serve the people. And this is why they do the work that they do. So really, thank you to every one of our department officials, and then to the Auditor General specifically, because we've walked a long path with the team of the Auditor General. And to get to the place where you have common understanding, you build trust, and you have open communication. It's really a good special place to be in, really to Liesel and the team, really to commend them for the manner in which we are able to do this work. So thank you, Chairperson.
There's no public, you're official there. There's no public here. I must make sure. I must make sure. So no problem. Member Bomba, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank the department, the minister, the auditors, and specifically my colleagues. At least I do understand that you know that it has got nothing to do to be nasty when we are asking questions. It's about trying to help you, because we are another arm of the state that has got a responsibility to make the government account. So thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned. There's some refreshments in the members' lounge if you want some. Thank you. Members, we're just going to do the resolutions, then we will go join them. We'll just
Yeah. You?
They say Google Maps just say all the roads is red. So all the roads is red. So I'm just telling you it's red. Our procedural officer will just go through the resolutions and then we will join the department. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Through you, Chair, there's just a concern that was raised by Member Van Wyk regarding the risks, especially with the fiscal crisis in the department in terms of goods and services versus the staffing. And that will just be indicated on the report somehow, Chairperson, just for future reference. Chairperson, then as well, the case of the mattresses that was raised by Member Lekker. We will send it on to the department chair for the input, Chair, and the report back. And Member Mbombo requested that the ERM plan of the department be presented to the committee chairperson. That we will probably put that on our things to do next year, Chairperson. Chair, then Member Petrus requested on page 193 for contracts, extension and expansions. The department indicated that they can forward us that, Chair. As well, Chair, as goods and services, Chair, on page 241. And Chairperson, the debts are written off on page 245. As well, Chairperson, the payments made as an act of grace. They indicated that they will also be able to send us document or a report on that, Chair.
Member Lekker, if you can just maybe give some details on the mattresses, because I saw you had the figure of 211,000. So if you can just maybe give some information so that can help us, when you write to the department, they know what to answer. Is that fine? Is that fine if you can give us that information? Because I don't want them to say we don't have the information. We've asked for the information. You understand, Member Lekker?
Thank you, Chair. With regards to that one, Chair, I'm going to supply information on the amount of the beds. It's 200 mattresses that were procured, but also the amount, it's 211. So that's the amount. But also, Chair, maybe once we get such information as exactly as to what happened, maybe we must further check whether there has been a forensic investigation conducted in that case on its own. Probably what I would have wanted to check also, but I realize it's a matter that must be asked with the department, would be on whether information of that nature was shared with the AG. If not, and maybe we'll see once we get such information. I did not ask it from the AG because it would have been a matter that I would be told you can ask the department. So I did not want to ask it there. But for me, it's a cause for concern. Whether it was reported, if not, why not, and what else can be done. Thank you, Chair.
Other members want to contribute? Is that it? Thank you, members. The meeting is then adjourned. Tomorrow you work from home. Thank you. Have a good weekend. Your weekend starts early.